Welcome back, Leveling Up Nation. This is your host, Brigham Blackham, and I am so stoked today. We have such an awesome guest, Beckie Lambert. We actually talked about having you on the podcast almost a year ago. So this is one of the things I've been looking forward to. She is going to be someone that blows your mind. She's a president of Real Estate to Freedom. She has like 21 years in the industry, an amazing mom, an amazing adventurer. She's a world traveler. And today we're going to be talking about not just how to attract and design your life, but to be able to make some impact and design it in a way that you can live the life that you want while building the business of your dreams. So Beckie, welcome to the call. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thanks, Brigham. I'm glad to be with you too. I know we did mention getting together about a year ago and things just got so busy for both of us, but I am super excited to be here today.
Man, it's so awesome. Well, let's start here. I think you have such a dynamic personality and such a dynamic background. You're an amazing mom. I want to hear what it takes to actually have a career in 21 years in real estate investing and how you've created freedom for yourself while you've been doing this. You're so driven to it. Let's hear your background.
Oh, good question. I started investing in real estate right after I graduated from college with my undergraduate degree. So I was about 18 and a half, almost 19 actually. Mm-hmm. And I picked up a rental property here in the Salt Lake area. And just like most of you, when I first bought the property or was getting ready to buy the property, almost everyone came out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, don't buy real estate. You're going to lose everything. It's a bad idea." I said, $150,000 for this house is way too much. You're going to lose everything. And I'll be honest, it made me a little nervous because, you're 18. You're not that old. I wasn't that old. But I kept looking at the numbers saying, well, my friends are all paying $300 a month per room to rent a room in like an apartment or a house in various different places. They're all paying about $300 a month, about $350, somewhere around there. The house has 6 bedrooms. My mortgage is going to be $875. Like, the math here makes sense. And even if it didn't, I can cover an $875 mortgage even on a entry-level job income. So I bought the house. That was my first foray into real estate. And I realized how much I loved it. I got roommates. I could handpick my own roommates, which was awesome. If I don't like someone, I just don't live with them because I'm the landlord. I get to pick who I'm living with. So I lived in one room and I put friends, people that I met, and moved them in the other rooms with me, and discovered how much I love to have somebody else pay my mortgage. That was really quite exciting. I was living there completely for free. Plus I was making about $400, $500 a month after expenses, just on the rents that was coming in from the house. So about a year later, I did that again, and I bought another house and did the same thing, and I loved it. And then I left on a mission for my church and kept making money on that house while I was not even here, which was on both houses, which was really awesome. And I just kind of became addicted for life, Brigham. How fun is it to have somebody else pay your mortgage and I get all the equity and I get the excess cash flow and I get all the tax benefits? I just didn't see a downside, even though every house I bought, I had people telling me, don't do it. It's just a matter of time before you lose your shorts. It's just a matter of time. Somebody's brother's cousin's neighbor's friend down the road lost money in real estate, and therefore it makes it a bad idea for everybody. Don't listen to them, guys. Don't listen to them. I have never yet bought a house that lost money in 21 years because I go into it realizing I've heard people say, oh, real estate's a gamble. It's not a gamble. It's a calculated risk. If you're taking it on as a gamble, you're doing it wrong. It is a calculated risk, and you need to make sure you have 2 exit strategies. So I buy houses that I know I can either fix and flip and rent out. I don't necessarily want to do both, but I know that if I'm going to fix and flip the house, the market rents support my ability to cash flow the property if I can't sell it. If I'm going to rent out a house, I buy a house, fix it up, and rent it out. The market rents support renting it out, but I also have enough equity I could sell it as a fix and flip. I'm a big believer, you got to have 2 exit strategies, and that's how you mitigate risk, or at least reduce it as much as possible. If you have 2 exit strategies, the chance that you're going to lose money on that property drops down significantly. And it's not always fix and flip and long-term rental. Sometimes you add a short-term rental into that. Sometimes you be creative. Like, I've seen houses where the highest and best use was literally just to pick up the property and then drop the house to the ground and turn it into a parking lot. Is that an unusual form of investing in real estate? Mm-hmm. But if it's an exit strategy that cash flows and makes sense, great. It's an exit strategy.
I think that's a beautiful way to look at how to take a calculated risk and take the gambling out, because you said, well, the numbers make sense. If it made sense to an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, they're going to make sense in the future. One of the things I love about real estate is it's not just what your snapshot is for this moment.
Right.
As you're paying down the mortgage, you are building equity. As you are improving the property, you are starting to gain more equity, and you can also change the usage. Like you said, you can actually use multiple streams of income. I love the short-term rental game, but everybody has a different take in real estate. I know your background is actually in commercial real estate. You did that loans and all of this. Would you mind talking about how being an investor in one area of real estate and then actually being a service professional in real estate as well has been able to impact how you mitigate risk?
Oh, absolutely. Interestingly enough, they're not that different.
Yeah.
So I have primarily invested in residential real estate on my own. This isn't necessarily an advice on that, but that was because working in commercial real estate as a commercial lender, I specialized in projects with the loan amount between about 1 and 38 million. So typically any commercial real estate project under 50 million I could do, and I did tons of them. And I watched a handful of partnerships go south and become very problematic. And I just decided, I'm loving this real estate thing. I kind of like not partnering with people. I like making money and being able to make all the decisions myself, so that when I want to sell it, I sell it. And if I don't want to sell it, I don't have to sell it. That's not necessarily my advice to everybody. There are some great benefits to partnering. But as I was building my career in commercial lending, in addition to my real estate portfolio, I just made the calculated decision to maintain properties that I own myself, just to make it simpler for myself. And as I have grown in my real estate experience, it's really helped me see that there are some great benefits to partnering, but you got to partner carefully. I tell people, if you're going to partner with someone, date them first. It's a lot like a marriage, and it's just as hard to get out of a partnership as it can be to get out of a marriage. So don't go into it just because they've got a pulse and they like real estate. That is not enough. Really get to know them well and make sure you mesh well on your long-term goals, your short-term goals, what benefits they bring to the table and what benefits you bring to the table. But most importantly, their integrity level. I can teach you skills that you don't have, and we can partner just fine. I can't teach you integrity. And if I can't trust you, I will not partner with you. And I think that's advice for everybody. If you can't trust them, don't partner with them. Yeah. But on the commercial side, with how I dovetails in, the analysis that we do on the commercial side for commercial real estate is very, very similar to the analysis you do on a residential rental property. So for example, if I'm going to buy a house and rent it out, I evaluate what's the market for this house to rent, 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom, whatever it is. What are the market rents? Is there a way to increase the market rents with either fixing up the house or adding bedrooms or whatever you need to do and still be cost effective enough to make it worth doing that? Well, once you nail it on the residential side, then you can scale it onto the commercial side, because an apartment building is the same thing, only better. So if you fix and flip a house and you make, $12,000 and think, oh, that's exciting. Although $12,000, for those of you who actually flip houses, that's a really low end. Typically, when you flip a house, you want to be making 20 to 30 to 40,000 on it, depending on the size of the house, or more, depending on the property. So say you make 20,000 on a house that you flip. You then take that exact same skill after you've done it multiple times on the residential, and you can do it well, you're good at estimating the cost, and you know what you're doing. Then you turn around and you buy, say, a 50-unit apartment building. Because if you made 20,000 on one house, you multiply that by 50. Do you see how this escalates? You're essentially doing the exact same thing. You're buying a house, although it's 50 identical houses. You're fixing them up, and then you're selling them. You fix and flip apartments much the same way you fix and flip a residential home. The main difference is you get the economies of scale. So instead of having one set of countertops, you've got 50 identical countertops going in 50 units. So you can get benefits from bulk purchasing and from manufacturers that give you discounts accordingly. It makes your cost per unit lower, but ironically enough, the rents on a 5-bedroom, let's say for 2-bedroom, 2-bath, a 2-bed, 2-bathroom house, at least in our market, rents for almost exactly the same as a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. People think that having a yard makes a big difference. It typically really doesn't. It doesn't. As a matter of fact, sometimes people want the apartment more because then they don't have to mow the lawn. And so if you buy 50 units, your cost per unit is lower than if you buy 1 unit. However, if you do it wrong, if you flipped a house and you lost 10,000 on that house, that really stinks. If you flipped an apartment building and you lost 10,000 per unit on those 50 units, do you see how we say nail it first and then scale it? Don't try to scale it first. You'll lose everything until you really get good at the fix and flipping side. But here's the cool thing about commercial real estate, Brigham, is that a single family home sells based on what the house is worth in this market area. What are people paying per square foot, right? Mm-hmm. On the commercial side, throw that out the window. It doesn't. An apartment building sells based on a cap rate. So if you buy an apartment building where the rents are below market rents, you fix it up a little bit, you raise the rents, and then you sell the property. It's based on how much the property is earning. So you literally, and I have seen this done many times, and I've worked with clients who have done it, and now I'm working on doing it with Nate and I. You can literally buy an apartment building that just isn't being managed well. It doesn't necessarily need to be upgraded much, but the managers are putting people in it below market rents, or they're not filling vacancies very fast, and or they've got a lot of expenses and they're just not managing their expenses well. You can buy an apartment building based on that, go in, fix the expenses, take out any unnecessary expenses. You can raise rents slowly as your contracts allow, raise the rents. You can take care of the vacancy problem and fill the vacancies really quickly, find incentives to get people in, and then turn around and sell it and make money without ever even fixing up the property. Wow. Now, usually you need to do some fixing of the units, but because typically managers who aren't managing it well are also not maintaining it well. It's pretty rare to find someone who maintains the property but doesn't manage it well. You can kind of see how those skills kind of dovetail.
They would definitely correlate for sure.
But it is like completely possible. I have seen it done where people walked in. One of my really good friends, who's a client of mine, whom I'm actually looking at partnering with now, his name's Tim. Tim walked in, bought an apartment building, literally just fixed the financials and then sold it. And he made like $280,000 in 4 months.
See, that's what a skill set does for you, is knowing what are the massive value adds you can do. If you can fix the finances, you don't have to fix any of the other things yet. But what if you can see both, and he'll make another $1 million if he spends the year updating all those things? That's the cost benefit analysis you do.
Right. And being able to do both is crucial, because a lot of times you need to do both of those. You need to fix the properties, remodel the property as needed, and fix the financials. So for example, like I've seen properties where it's a 25-unit apartment building. They have a full-time manager on site and a full-time maintenance guy on site, and blah, 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 blah. You don't need a full-time maintenance person on site for 25 units. And you don't even need a full-time property manager on site. It's only 25 units. That's an expense that's unnecessary. You go out, you get rid of those, and you just put in a property management company that will manage it as needed. That alone will drop your expenses. And so commercial is really fun because it's taking everything you learned on the residential fix and flip side and scaling it to be big numbers for the skills you've already learned. But that's obviously only on apartments. The cap rate feature, though, is true for office buildings, retail, warehouse, aircraft hangars, pretty much all of it. It's a cap rate of over the NOI, or the net operating income. And so knowing the financials of the property and how it's performing, figure out what's your value add. How are you going to raise rents? How are you going to improve the property? I tell our clients and my friends, if you're looking at buying real estate, I don't usually recommend buying property that's performing really well, right where it needs to be, because you can't add value. You're just buying an asset that you're going to hang on to long term, which I guess if you have a full-time job and you don't have time to do stuff like that, if you just want a place to park your money and write it off on your taxes and make some return, that works. But the real value add is fixing it up, because that adds instant equity. And then if the market turns, you didn't buy something at top dollar, you already added equity value. So you've got some cushion to protect you in case of market turns, because there are market changes in every economy. A healthy economy should have naturally usually 3 to 5 corrections every 10 years. Not big ones always, just 3 to 5 corrections.
But cushions save lives. That's something I heard from Eric Counts. And if you have enough cushion, if you have to fire sell, you can. But if you don't have the cushion, now you have to figure out, how long can I let this bleed so that I can heal the property or heal this deal before it goes back. So let's talk about this. I know you are amazing at going out and being a world traveler. You're an adventurer. You go with your kids, with your husband. You have Facebook gold that you put out there all the time saying, man, this is what this experience was like. Let's talk about this freedom element. How has this passive income that you've generated, this real estate engine, been able to fuel your adventures, fuel your dreams?
Well, that's why real estate's so awesome, Brigham. It's because, at least for us, I have a whole portfolio of rental properties. My husband has a whole portfolio of rental properties. And we have a contractor that knows exactly what we want when we want a property flipped. We literally have bought properties that we didn't even go see the inside of. We call our contractor's name's Moroni. He's awesome, which we have a few backup ones in case he gets busy as well. But we'll call Moroni and say, hey, this house looks like a good deal. Will you go look at it for us and give us an estimate on what it's going to cost to remodel it in the exact same condition that we usually do? He knows what cupboards, countertops, paint, everything. He'll go over, take a video, send it to us. I mean, we literally have done this when we're out of the country. He'll go over and send us an estimate. It's going to be about $75,000. And here's the simple breakdown for it. And then I also recommend, when I'm looking here, you should do this and that and that. I'm like, okay, we run the math. If it makes sense, we put in an offer. If it doesn't make sense, then we still put in an offer at where it does make sense, guys. Don't just give up because the asking price doesn't match. Worst thing they can do is say, no, you're right where you were before you started. And then pick up the property and send him over and get the remodel work done. There have been properties where I didn't even see it until it was done. Like, physically see the property. I don't usually recommend that, but we've worked with this particular contractor for so long that he knows what we want and we know what he wants and what he needs. And so if we're out of the country and a property makes sense, we'll send him that direction to get it taken care of. I don't want to pass on a great deal just because I happen to be in Morocco. When we've got teams in place who know what we want and who can do it and who make money by giving us exactly what they know we need and what we want. That's not typically how I do it. I recommend you go see the property yourself. That's one of those things that you don't try to scale that until you've nailed it initially. But it is something you can do when you've built long enough relationships with people that they are pretty skilled at real estate along with you. The cool thing about the real estate is Nate and I can travel the world with our kids. We have 8 kids, by the way, so it gets expensive to travel the world, and it's totally worth it. We can travel the world, and our tenants pay rent whether we're here or not. The properties that we've made money on seller financing on, when we bought them, fixed them up, and sold them on seller financing, they pay whether we're here or not. So all that money goes into our checking account to help funnel our real estate freedom dreams, traveling the world. And we don't have to be at a desk to earn it. I don't have to worry about what happens if I get hit by a car and I don't have my typical brain function available anymore. That money is still there to take care of our kids no matter what. I don't have to worry about whether I'm sick or if I break a leg, or if my mental health declines. All of that income continues to go into our checking account to take care of us and allows us to travel the world and allows us to be the kind of parents we need to be. My husband went through a really, really difficult situation about 4 years ago when he ended up having to go through a divorce. And it was very unexpected. They had a really happy marriage. And I'm not really going to go into it, but ultimately she just decided she's done being a mom and she's done being married, and she left the state and signed away all parental rights. And it was really, really traumatic for him and the kids. And real estate was such a blessing, guys. We felt so blessed by God because of it. I didn't know him at the time, but afterward I did. Because real estate gave him the chance to step back from everything that was going on and just be a dad. Be there for his boys, all 5 of them, to love them, to help them through the emotional trauma, to help them with the healing, to help them find peace, to get them the therapy they needed. Because let's be honest, good therapy is not cheap. It's worth it. And just be there to a large extent. He almost walked away from real estate for almost 2 years with very, very minimal work being put in on it. His portfolio still continued to pay him. He still had plenty of income to cover all of his expenses and to take care of the kids and get them all the therapy they needed until they got to a good, healthy place. And around about that time, and probably before that time, I met him and we started dating. And I had 3 kids, and now we have 8 kids 100% of the time. We're happy as can be, still traveling the world, having a blast with our kids. Real estate is probably the most forgiving industry I've ever known. I mean, how many industries, Brigham, could you walk away from for 2 years and still make money?
Very few, if any.
I don't know any.
I don't know any off the top of my head.
2 years, just walk away. Yeah, there were some properties that needed some maintenance done. Yeah, there was a property management company that was stealing from him. But guess what? The cool thing with real estate is you can go back and fix that. You just maintain the things that needed to be maintained. The ones that weren't, I mean, it wasn't like floods or anything. It was just some deferred maintenance that needed to be taken care of. The property management company that was stealing from him, I went through all the accounting with him. And because I have a background in finance, econometrics, and I worked in banking for 13 years. So we went through all the financials with them. I'm like, hey, this particular property management company, you need to fire them. They're charging you to winterize sprinkling systems at houses that don't have sprinkling systems. They charged you for new appliances at a house that they did not put new appliances in. The ones that are in there are still 15 years old. So, I mean, just a ton of little things like that. And they were, by the way, be careful with that, guys. They were charging him $1,200 to release units. And so they were putting tenants in for 1 or 2 months at a time. So they were charging him $1,200 every 2 months because they knew he was going through a bad emotional state and he didn't notice it. So we just fired him. And the funny thing is it's still cash flowed even with that.
Wow.
Everything was still cash flowing. Make sure your property manager's incentives match with what you want. So it's another word for the wise is manage your property managers and make sure they're incentivized to do exactly what you want.
Yeah, when you have the wrong incentive like that, seems really backward to say, well, every 2 months you have to re-up those leases and they get a benefit for that. You're like,
Yeah, they were signing short-term contracts only because that's how they make money.
That's a really good tip and warning. So thank you for that. Becky, when you're looking at some of the challenges you've had to deal with, I know you've had to juggle a ton of really big, hard, hairy things that you now, looking back, you've been able to come out of and change your life. What's one of those either failures or struggles that you were able to overcome? And how did that impact you in a positive way?
Oh, good question. There's a handful of things I could discuss on that. I would say in many ways, and I want to say this with a careful caveat, my first husband has changed his life and he's doing really well. And I'm really, really, really happy for him. Okay. My first marriage was not a good marriage. It was abusive and very, very unhealthy on a lot of levels. And it was hard. It was really hard. We had 3 kids together and I wasn't really sure what I should be doing with that. But what it did do is because he had a really hard time maintaining a job at that time, due to some problems that he had going on in his own personal life, what it did was it allowed me the freedom to be a career person, like become a commercial lender and really build my portfolio because I was financially supporting the entire family myself and always was. All 11 and a half years of that marriage, I was the only one financially supporting the family. And looking back now, what a blessing that was to me, because it allowed me to find out just exactly what I'm capable of doing. I built a really successful career at the bank that I loved, working with senior management. I had a key man life insurance policy because I was already pegged to be one of their managers, and then like whole bank-wide managers in the very near future. Loved what I was doing, had tons of great clients, but also continued to build my real estate portfolio, was picking up rental properties back right and left, adding them to the portfolio, bringing in income. And what I learned to do was basically be a single mom from the very beginning without realizing I was a single mom. I'd work full time and had the kids in daycare and or school, whichever needed to be. And then the second I got home, I'd take the kids with me and we go to rental properties. And my kids as young as like 3 and 4 were helping me like clean out sink drains and take care of the yard work, which I don't recommend that. Like you really should hire managers, but I didn't know that. I hadn't got the education to do it myself. I hadn't found really good education programs that teach you how to do this. I just kind of figured it out as I went. And I learned a lot of really cool tips along the way. But what it really did was it taught my kids work ethic. they got really, really good at fixing stuff at a really young age. And they got really good at client communication skills at a really young age because they'd be interacting with our tenants. I'd be over there working on a few things, and the tenants just fell in love with our kids. They're like, oh, their kids are so fun. And I'd watch my kids like negotiating terms with our tenant. It was the funniest thing. The tenants would be saying things like, well, it might be hard to pay rent next month because it's Christmas. And my little 6-year-old son's like, yeah, but it's also Christmas at our house too, and we need money too. So make sure you're paying rent. Like, holy cow, this is awesome. I mean, it's fun to watch kids learn these skills of negotiating, you know. It's really important to pay rent too, because we still have to pay the mortgage on this house. I'm like, wow, go you, 6-year-old. You know, and that's a really important skill for them to learn. My kids learned self-esteem and initiative and hard work, and they learned budgeting and finance skills. I mean, starting from a young age, I went through all the financials with the kids, and I still do. You want to know how much money I'm making on every house? Here's the rent, here's the expenses, here's the net income, here's how you calculate it. At this point, I'm now teaching our 13-year-old son how to do accounting, and he's doing all the bookkeeping for Nate and I's real estate portfolio because he showed a proclivity to math and accounting, and he wants to learn it. So I'm teaching him. So one of the things I would say to learn is find where your skills are and run with them. And don't be afraid to be something that's outside of the norm in your culture or in your area. I love being a mom. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I also love being a real estate investor. And it turns out you can do both just great. And your kids can learn a ton of great lessons along the way. We now have, my ex-husband's a contractor now. After I divorced him, I've been telling him for years, hey, you should become a contractor. After I divorced him, he took that to heart and he became a contractor. He does a great job. And he now hires our kids to go work on projects with him. And he teaches them how to sheetrock and how to mud and tape and how to paint. And they're learning some really great skills. And I love it. It's become real estate's become the family business. But it took a lot of hard work and sacrifice to get there with our kids, with me letting them know, look, we're going to have to work on the real estate properties tonight. But on Saturday, if you can work with me during the days, on Saturday, I'll take you swimming at the pool and we'll go do XYZ fun things to make up for it. So work hard, play hard.
Work hard, play hard, and adventure hard. I think that's such a fun way to live your life. Now, your freedom that you're bringing up that I am so impressed with is do the work once really well, and then you can benefit from that for years. That's what I'm hearing over and over again. So tell me why it's so important to have the right education and to implement it consistently so that you can do the work right rather than wondering whether or not you did it.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you a personal example. Okay. I learned how to do real estate the hard way and fell in love with real estate. The numbers made sense. I could just see that. But I learned how to be a landlord the wrong way by becoming a landlord and figuring out that didn't work. Maybe I should try something different. It turns out that didn't work either. I should try something different. This is working. And so I lost a lot of money along the way. I made a lot of money along the way, but I lost potential income from figuring out how to screen tenants after I had a bad tenant, figuring out how to properly set what the amount of the security deposit should be after someone damaged the property way more in excess of what the security deposit was, and how to screen that together with credit scores and income verification, and then determining how much of a security deposit they should have, things like that. I learned all of this the hard way over 21 years. Thankfully, I'm a very math-minded brain, and so I didn't lose a ton of money on it. But here's a perfect example, okay? I had been in real estate for 18 years, almost 19 years when I met Nate Lambert, my husband, my current and forever husband. That guy's amazing. And I thought, oh, I know so much about real estate. I was way more cocky than I should have been. I'm just going to confess. Okay. I thought, well, I know all this stuff. And Nate and I sat down and we watched a class on taxes and understanding legal and taxes on real estate. My mind was completely blown. I had been hiring a real estate tax accountant to do my taxes for years. Someone who supposedly specialized in real estate taxes.
Love the air quotes.
This particular individual hadn't bothered to tell me that I should have moved from an LLC to an S Corp probably 15 years ago, and I was overpaying in taxes. I was able to, I mean, I can go back and see my taxes, and I'm actually really I understand a lot of math. I do taxes. I understand how to do them, but I hire a tax accountant for the depreciation portion because that's the part that I just don't want to mess with. I understand it. I just don't want to deal with it. This particular person, because of that one thing alone, I had not switched to an S corp, and therefore I'd overpaid in taxes. To the best of my estimate, I'd overpaid to the tune of $50,000 in the previous 10 years before I met Nate. And that is probably truthfully an underestimate, because it's really important to me that I always be honest, be honest with people, guys. Don't lie to them. Your reputation is everything in real estate. And if you lie to people, it will come back to haunt you. You might think people don't know if I'm lying, and I hear people say this a lot. They're not lying. They're just exaggerating. It's lying. If it's not the truth, it's not the truth. There's no middle ground. The truth is the truth. So be honest and don't exaggerate. That's another tidbit of life advice for me in real estate as well. Because, I mean, think about it, Brigham. How many people, and don't name them, you and I both know people who exaggerate on what they're able to do and what they have done. And everybody around them knows they're exaggerating. And so everyone knows to not trust them. And I'm not thinking about one specific person or two specific people. There's a whole handful of people in this industry who lie and exaggerate about stuff, and everyone around them knows it. So, or if they don't know it at first, they figure it out pretty fast. So be honest. Where was I going with that? Sorry. Okay, so
don't exaggerate is what I'm hearing.
50,000 is what I've overpaid on taxes at a minimum. And you can amend taxes, but only for the last 3 years. I'm out those 8 years. That alone would have paid for the entire education program that Nate bought, that taught him how to do it right from the first place, so he didn't overpay on taxes and lose money by having a bad tenant and overpay on property managers that aren't managing it well because he didn't learn how to manage it, how to manage your property managers and figure out how to set the incentives to make sure they're doing what you want, not necessarily what is in their best financial interest. It has to match. What's in your best financial interest has to match what your contractor's best interest is, your property manager's best interest, your business partner's best interest. They all have to align. And if it doesn't, amend whatever you need to amend to make sure that it aligns. That's how you get work done. That's how you get work done in a timely manner and with good quality workmanship. If it's them that's losing money, if it's not done right or done well, suddenly they get done right and done well.
That's a great way to incentivize them to do the right things, right? Consistently.
Yes. It also works in parenting, just FYI. Our house is magical. The internet turns off, and then it doesn't turn back on in the evening until 7 o'clock. And even then it only turns on if your chores are done. We tell our kids our house is like Hogwarts from Harry Potter. The internet only turns on if your chores are done and your homework is done. And even then it only turns on for an hour. And our kids, there was a lot of weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth initially, but you know what? Their grades are better. Their chores are done really well. And the kids are happier because we all need work ethic and we all need responsibility and accountability. Every age needs that.
And those little boundaries will allow them to actually control their usage, and they get to decide, am I going to be just wasting all of this time, or I only have an hour? What do I really want to focus on?
Right. And the hour is only for the older kids. The younger ones don't get that. The younger kids, we play board games, and I try and keep them off screens as much as possible. Let's play card games. Let's play board games. Let's wrap Christmas presents.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do. Yes.
Connecting with them is so key. Well, one of the things I've been really impressed with since I've known you the last couple of years is your ability to take complex ideas, simplify them in a way that allows somebody to take action on them. You gave a great training at our national conference about how you've done this with your Facebook and social media following. Take some complicated things, simplify it in a way that lets people take action. Can you talk about how your marketing career, maybe not even just in real estate, but your marketing has been able to focus on doing one thing really well or simple and allow us to see what it takes, but also be able to know what we can do, what's an actionable idea that we can take away from your experience?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of things I could discuss on that one. With regards to marketing, I find social media to be really effective. But remember, these are your friends. It's not just a sales tool. No one wants to be pitched to all the time. but let them know, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you're ever interested, we'd love to. And here's some examples of what we're doing. Every once in a while we post, here's the property we're flipping. Here's the property, how much money we're making on the rentals. This is what we're doing in our real estate. Intermixed with, here's our family. We love you. Here's some inspiring messages. We want to let you know that you're doing great. Be real. Just be real. And that does inspire people to want to learn more. Maybe not initially, but as they watch it continue, it does inspire them to want to do more. Ironically enough, I've been in this industry for so long. I have clients that are former tenants of mine because they've watched me make money on real estate and realized, dang, I wish I'd done that 20 years ago. So 3 of my 5 first tenants in that very, very first house I told you about have all joined Renatus with us and are real estate investors now because they watched me do it in the beginning and they've watched me do it all along the way and realized, actually, this is something I can do. I can do this for myself. And yes, I still own that house. The mortgage is completely paid off and I make about $3,000 a month after expenses on that house today. So everyone who said, don't buy this house, you're going to lose everything, didn't know what they were talking about. My other advice on that, as far as like marketing, is not just marketing for clients and things of that nature. It's when you are a genuinely honest person and you treat everyone as though they're a close friend of yours, because they should be. I mean, treat everybody as though they're good people, because the vast majority of them all are. You end up building friendships that are lasting and meaningful. And I put a lot of effort into connecting with people and staying connected with people, not just my 1 or 2 or 3 friends, like everybody that has had a meaningful impact in my life, that I have their contact information. I mean, there's some when I was younger that I don't have, but try to stay connected with them. Let them know they've had an impact in your life. You'd be surprised how often that comes back to benefit you financially. I don't do it for the financial benefit. I just do it because I like people. I really, really like it. Nate was laughing so hard at our wedding. We literally had about 20 different people show up. He's like, who's this person? I'm like, oh, that's one of my current tenants. He's like, you invited your tenants? I'm like, you didn't? Aren't they your friends? He's like, no, I have a property manager that manages. I'm like, oh, all of mine are my friends. Current and former tenants just kept coming to our wedding. He's like, I've never met a landlord who's friends with all their former tenants. I'm like, well, I just like people, and they're all really good people, and they took good care of my property, so we're friends. But I have found a lot of properties that I have either held on to as long-term rental properties or fix and flips through former neighbors, former friends, former church members, former college roommates, or you know what I mean? Like just people throughout the years who will call me and say, hey, I have a friend whose neighbor is going to an assisted living center. And I told them, I know somebody who can help you sell this house. I know somebody who can clean everything out. You don't even have to move out grandma's belongings. They'll take care of everything. I have a house I picked up because mortgage lenders that I'm friends with will call me and say, I have a house, there's equity in it. Or I have a tenant, I have a person who there's equity in their house, they're losing it to foreclosure, and they can't qualify to refinance it. What can you do for them? Which, you know, as a fix and flipper, great, I'll take care of you. Well, they've only got 10 days. Fine, I can take care of you in 10 days or less. And I'll get you some money to get back on your feet to help you pay the security deposit at an apartment, in addition to what I'm able to do. And they know, these people know that when I come in and work with the clients, the tenants, whoever they are, I do need to make money on it, but I'm not looking to screw anybody over. That's a great way to make money on one transaction and burn bridges on a lot of future transactions. You need to be honest with people and you need to be fair with them. And I let them know right up front, this is what it's going to cost me to remodel this property. And I do the higher end on that because anyone who's ever flipped a property knows you don't know what you don't know. Until you rip into that wall, you have no idea what you're going to find. And so there is a big contingency number built into my fix and flip numbers because I have to assume that there's a lot of damage I don't know about, which is almost always accurate. Okay. Here's what it's going to cost to fix and flip the property. Here's what it's worth when it's done. Here's how much of a profit I need to make in the middle. And as part of that profit, I'm taking all this headache away from you. I'm removing all the belongings out of the house. I'm managing the construction project, and I'm putting in the funds to remodel it, because you can remodel your grandma's house just fine, but you have to come up with the $70,000 to remodel it first. And if you don't have the availability to do that right now, I can pay you this much and you'll make a profit on it. or we can try to list it on the MLS. I am a realtor as well. But for houses that are in ugly condition don't sell well on the MLS. Typically, the offers they get are pretty close to exactly what I was offering them up front, because it's other people who are going to fix and flip the property that they're making offers. It's not people who look at it, cluttered, disastrous mess. This is exactly my dream home. I always wanted to raise my family in. Says nobody ever. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you get the same clientele list of people as what I was offering in the beginning. So when I'm really open with them and honest with them and tell them, look, this is the profit I expect to make. There is some contingency built into this, and that's why. Here's why. Because here's all these stories of what I've done. I mean, you don't know until you start remodeling what it's actually going to cost. And I walk them through it, and then they feel like I'm being very fair with them. And I am genuinely trying to be very fair with them. I'm going to make a profit. I'm not going to hide from them and act like I'm not here to make a profit, because they know you're lying and because it's not honest. Here's how much profit I plan to make, and move forward. And you know what? You'd be surprised how many people in the end come out and say, thank you for being honest with my neighbor. They came back and said, you did a really great job with them. They felt very fair. You took the stress off their plate. And those people will send you referrals later. Mortgage officers send me referrals. Former neighbors, former friends send me referrals, which one of the advantages I have, having been in this for 21 years, I did the house hacking model. That was the only, Nate jokingly called me the one trick pony, because that's all I knew. And I did it over and over and over and over and over. So by the time I met Nate, I had house hacked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 times, which means I had lived in 9 different houses for at least a year and 1 day. I had met 9 different neighborhoods and religious congregations all around them. And I'm the kind of person that I walk into a neighborhood and I get to know all the neighbors, and I bring you Christmas gifts, and I walk your dogs, and we invite your kids over to play at our house, because that's just who I am. I like people. And so I have 9 different neighborhoods worth of people who are like, hey, so-and-so down the road's talking about moving into a nursing home. What can you do to help them? Or, hey, we've got this neighbor down the road. Their house is really trashed. We all hate them. Can you talk to selling the house to you and fixing and flipping it so that we can actually have a nice house? Because we're pretty sure they're selling drugs out of the house. I'm like, done. And I'll work with them. And sometimes I have to go back and say, yeah, they're just not interested in selling at a price that makes sense. And other times I tell them, congratulations, I just bought that house. Give me 6 months. It'll be nice again. You know,
That's amazing.
It benefits. And people where I live know when I come in, the house is going to be in much better condition when I'm done. And if I rent it out, I background check, I credit check, and I income verify all of the tenants. So my neighbors, whom I'm still friends with, all of my neighbors know if someone lives in Becky's rental property, it's because they're already background checked. I can't guarantee they're perfect people, but they passed a background check, a credit check, and an income verification, which is better than you usually get. So they feel safe. They tell me, we're really grateful that you background check these people so that we know our kids are more likely to be safe around them. And I let them know, like, I'm here to build the community. I'm not here to run it down. I want to make money and build the community.
That's awesome. Well,
make money at the expense of the community.
I think everything you've brought up has been so packed with value. And I love how you brought up, just add value, however it is that you can. Be honest with people, be ethical, give them everything that they asked. I am just blown away with how much value you created for all of us today. So thank you for sharing your heart, your soul, all this amazing information. We got like 30 seconds left. What is your place where you want to send people? What would be the thing that you're like, hey, go here so you can connect with me more?
Yeah, my husband and I have a book. It's called Active Life Passive Income. You can look that up on Audible or on Amazon. It's really awesome.
Super good.
We have a website, Real Estate to Freedom, where we talk about real estate. There's also a website with the Active Life Passive Income book. And you can look me up on Facebook or on Instagram. Yeah, Beckie Lambert, or on Facebook, it's Beckie Kimber Lambert, which was my maiden name.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Beckie. Guys, keep leveling up your life. We are so grateful for all of the wonderful things that Beckie shared. Keep connected with her. She's amazing. Love Nate as well. In the near future, we'll have him on the podcast too. But once again, keep leveling up your life. Beckie, thank you so much. This is so-
Thanks for inviting me, Brigham. I appreciate it. We've been trying to connect for a while. Guys, Brigham is awesome. I've known him for a few years. He's a good guy. And in all of my experience, he's very honest and very fair. So listen to him. He's got great advice.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Up next, we're going to have an awesome guy. He is Bernard Kissenbing. Do not want to miss it in just a moment. God bless.
Thank you.
Welcome.